Nope, I guess this is how he's chosen to respond to the Women's March, by invading his own country.
That talks about the news. Don't defend Chicago, you dope!
So I've been working on a video about Chicago since before Christmas, consolidating data and sourcing statements made by the governor and other folks in the Illinois legislature, and that has chewed up a lot of my time. That and the activisming. But being as there is now an actual, real threat that Tangerine Hitler and his jackbooted thugs are going to invade Chicago, fuck it. There's no time for that now. Here's what I can tell you for sure. The first and foremost thing that needs to be understood is that this crisis has two major causes. First, Chicago has not been in the best of shape for a great deal of time. And second, government malfeasance, largely Governor Rauner's malfeasance, is making the problem 10 times worse. Illinois, not having a budget for the last 2 years now, has not done anyone any favors. And yeah, if you want to get pedantic, we had a temporary budget, but that was literally and figuratively a drop in the bucket. I know people who work in government, and they have all insisted to me that the temporary budget hurt more than it helped, specifically because it avoided forcing a resolution where a resolution was sorely needed. Because a resolution is sorely needed, and has been needed for years. The governor is a lunatic that wants to drown the government in the bathtub like a puppy, and the legislature is filled with either people elected with his money or wishy-washy corporate Democrats unwilling to push the line. And here's the situation you have now in Chicago. The social safety net has been sledgehammered into non-existence by sheer lack of funding. The rich aren't getting richer, and at the same time the poor are getting much, much, much poorer. And these people have kids to feed, so they turn to crime, a lot of them, practically all at once. And the Snooky chief thinks he can solve that by pointing guns at it. I don't... Okay, so we have a strict, traceable line here. Poverty leads to crime. Then the lack of intervention and blatant government malfeasance makes poverty worse, which makes that crime much, much worse. These people aren't going out and killing each other because they're psychopathic murderers. They're killing each other because they're scared and they're hungry and they can't see any other options for themselves, and they have to feed their children. You aren't going to solve that by pointing guns at them. In fact, you're probably going to make it even worse by pointing guns at them. And why don't we talk about the ramifications of this? As soon as the Snookian chief sends troops to Chicago, his presidency is completely illegitimate. Full stop, end of story. That kind of gross misuse of his power will immediately prove him to be a despot and a raging incompetent beyond any kind of question. The one job, the one responsibility that the president has above all others is keeping the people of his nation safe. Holding them at gunpoint when they've been held hostage by a man intent on destroying the society they live in is so far from what that actually is that I can only compare it to what happened in the Middle East during Bush's administration. Except this becomes infinitely more complicated because you are having soldiers invade their own country. I come from a family of soldiers, and I can tell you that I'm not entirely sure that they would be willing to do that. And even if they do, okay, we need a general rule of thumb. Bearing down on a civilian population with overwhelming force does not create compliance. It creates unrelenting resistance. No matter how hard you push against people, unless you literally kill every single person, you are going to create a force that will resist you. And we're talking about a city in the US. And let me do that thing where I restate the thing that I literally just said so that there's no ambiguity about what I said. If President Trump sends troops into Chicago, he could very well create a situation as volatile and ultimately unsolvable as the situation in Iraq. In the US. In Chicago. That, from where I'm standing, is exactly what is at risk here. This blithering idiot, within his first week of presiding over the country, has threatened to throw it into a state of chaos seen only in other nations, nations where the same military had intervened in the past to catastrophic effect. Now, do I think this is going to happen? Hell no. There's a pretty good chance Trumposaurus is bluffing, and even if he isn't, there are other people in the military and presumably in his cabinet that will smack him right upside the head if he tries. But there's also the chance that he might not care, and if he doesn't, it will be the worst thing to happen in this country in 100 years. Oh, this has been a bad week for me. I'm still going to try and work on the thing in Chicago, but I'm going to skip the first thing. There are statements I have sourced, and there's stuff I've researched, and I'm gonna link to a series called Stranded by the State. It's about how the social safety net has been, as I said, sledgehammered into non existence by non funding. And I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm completely out of line, but I lay this all on Governor Rauner's feet. Because he's refused to pass any kind of budget. And yes, I said he's refused. The functionally the situation is more complicated, but this hadn't happened until he took office. I'm rambling, I know. Like, I try to do these things unscripted, but if you liked all that stuff, then like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel if you care to. Thanks for watching, and take care of yourselves, please. These are bad times.